The movie begins in the early 2010s with a young girl named Meow narrating her story. She explains that as a child, she was lost and later adopted by another family who raised her with love. But years later, her biological parents finally found her and brought her back to Beijing, revealing that her original name was Bei. Ironically, that same name now belonged to another girl, the adopted daughter who had taken her place after she went missing. Meow was overjoyed at first, believing this was the start of a brand new chapter in her life, surrounded by her real family. But reality hit fast and hard. The moment she arrived home, Bei began her emotional theatrics. Pretending to be ill, she had everyone rushing her to the hospital. Later that evening, when the family sat together for dinner, Bei suddenly broke down, yelling that now that their real daughter had returned, they would no longer love her. With tears streaming down her face, she screamed that she no longer had any value in the family and stormed off dramatically. Meow's elder brother Daniel wasn't pleased about her return either. He had long considered Bei his true sister and didn't want to see her hurt. So he suggested that Meow move out temporarily, saying she could stay at his best friend Wuxian's place next door. Their father was furious, insisting that both girls were his daughters and deserved equal love and respect, but Daniel's mind was fixed on protecting Bei. Not wanting to cause more conflict, Meow agreed to stay next door. Daniel carried her luggage over and introduced her to Wuxian's house, explaining that Wuxian was practically family, though he often went abroad to visit his mother and wouldn't be back for a while. Until then, Meow could stay there peacefully. She hesitated but eventually agreed. That night, she lay on her bed, clutching an old photo of her adoptive parents, the people who had raised her after she was lost. The photo reminded her of warmth, of home. But then she heard faint footsteps. Someone was inside. Terrified, she grabbed a glass bottle and struck the intruder before he could move. To her shock, the thief wasn't a thief at all. It was Wuxian, who had just returned from abroad. As he rubbed his head in disbelief, Daniel rushed in to explain everything. Who Meow was, how she had been lost years ago, and how her return had made Bei emotionally unstable. Daniel requested that Wuxian let her stay for a few days, and Wuxian agreed with a quiet nod. Once Daniel left, Meow apologized to Wuxian, thanking him for letting her stay. He smiled and told her she could use the first floor, while he would stay upstairs. But he warned her that whatever happens, she must never enter his darkroom on the second floor. Then, almost teasingly, he asked whether she was truly Daniel's long-lost sister. Meow said nothing. She just turned and walked away, feeling an ache inside. She had dreamt that reuniting with her real family would be joyous and that she would be hugged, loved, and cherished. Instead, she'd been pushed out once again. The scene shifted to school, where Meow sat quietly in class when Wuxian walked in, surrounded by his friends. He hadn't graduated the previous year, so he was now repeating the grade, ending up in her class. The moment he entered, the atmosphere changed. Every girl's eyes lit up. Wuxian was the school's most handsome and wealthy student. As the lecture continued, Wuxian sat behind Meow, stealing glances at her from time to time. Later, while Meow was helping put sports equipment back in place, Wuxian discreetly clicked a few photos of her, mesmerized by her natural innocence. Two girls approached him, trying to hand him an energy drink, but he politely refused. Even though half the school adored him, his attention now belonged entirely to Meow. Then came the bullies, Bei's loyal friends. They cornered Meow on the playground, mocking her and hurling accusations. One of them sneered, saying, "So you're the girl who tried to steal Bei's family from her. She told us you bullied her so badly that she nearly took her own life." Meow tried desperately to defend herself, insisting she had never even spoken to Bei yet. They walked home in silence, step by step, shadows overlapping in the fading sunset. And slowly, through these small, unspoken moments, an unexpected bond began to grow between them. Wuxian happened to notice an old photograph lying near Meow's bed, the one of her adoptive parents. With mild curiosity, he asked if she missed them. Startled, Meow quickly hid the photo, but after a pause, she admitted softly that she missed them very much. Later, when Wuxian picked up Meow's homework to leave, she stopped him and gently advised that he should focus more on his studies instead of sleeping through every class. She also thanked him sincerely for standing up for her against the bullies. Wuxian smiled faintly and replied that it was all right before walking away to his darkroom, the space he used for developing photographs. Photography was his passion, and the walls of that dimly lit room were covered with prints of people and places he had captured. While he was lost in the quiet rhythm of his work, a rich, savory aroma drifted through the air. Curious, he followed it downstairs to find Miao serving hot soup. After tasting it, he seemed pleasantly surprised and said that it was delicious. He never would have guessed she could cook so well. Miao smiled and explained that when her adoptive parents were away, she used to cook for her younger brother. Meanwhile, Bei was hanging out with a group of street thugs when Daniel arrived, furious. He demanded that she return home immediately and asked how she could even think of associating with such people. But Bei snapped back that she didn't want to go anywhere with him anymore after all. He no longer treated her like his sister or cared for her the way he used to. Angered, Daniel tried to pull her away, but the thugs stepped in, challenging him. The situation quickly turned violent, and Daniel found himself outnumbered. Just when things were about to spiral out of control, Wuxian and Miao appeared and joined the fight, helping Daniel push the gang back. The three managed to escape, locking the thugs inside a storage room. Catching their breath, everyone cheered at their small victory, except Bei, who was scolded immediately by Daniel. Upset, she shouted that she had gone with those people because she thought nobody cared whether she lived or died. Daniel's friend retorted that they had nearly been beaten to death trying to save her. Thankfully, Miao had acted quickly and sprayed the thugs with pepper spray, giving them the chance to flee. Wuxian noticed that Miao's hand was bleeding from the scuffle. Concerned, he asked if she was all right and began tending to her wound. Watching this, Bei's irritation returned, jealousy flickering in her eyes. She deliberately moved closer to Wuxian, trying to draw his attention away from Miao. A few moments later, the group came across a small, abandoned puppy. While Bei wrinkled her nose and refused to touch it, Miao instantly bent down, her eyes lighting up with affection. She looked at Wuxian and asked if she could keep the puppy at his house. Daniel reminded her that Wuxian didn't like dogs at all, but to everyone's surprise, Wuxian agreed, saying she could keep it if it made her happy. Miao's face brightened at once. She looked like a child who had just been given her favorite toy. That night, the two sat together trying to think of a name for the puppy. Wuxian suggested Gray, and Miao nodded enthusiastically, saying it suited him perfectly. Then, as he applied ointment to her injured hand, she felt a warmth spreading in her chest, an unfamiliar comfort in the way he cared for her. Just then, Daniel arrived and announced that it was time for Miao to return home. He explained that Bei had calmed down and even wanted her back. Both Miao and Wuxian went silent. Neither wanted to be separated. Wuxian quickly came up with an excuse, saying that Miao couldn't leave yet because the puppy needed her care. Besides, Daniel was allergic to dogs, so taking it home wasn't possible. Daniel understood the situation immediately and, with a teasing smile, said that she could stay for as long as she liked. As he walked away, he gave Wuxian a knowing glance that made both of them blush. Once alone again, they couldn't hide their happiness. Miao, smiling shyly, went off to prepare dinner, while Wuxian stood there grinning like a fool long after she left the room. The next morning, Miao told him that she loved taking care of plants and had several in her room. She explained that they needed proper sunlight, but the corner near her window only got light for a short time each day. Wuxian thought for a moment and then led her upstairs. He opened the door to a bright, airy room right beside his own and told her she could move her plants there. It had plenty of sunlight all day long. Miao looked around, her face glowing with delight, and said that the room was beautiful. She absolutely loved it. Seeing her happy made Wuxian smile too. Soon, they fell into a gentle routine. Each morning, when one of them woke up, they would knock on the other's door so they could have breakfast together. One day, Wuxian handed her a small key and said that if either of them was ever away, they could use it to enter the house through a hidden spot. Miao stretched her arm to reach for it but couldn't, so Wuxian stepped closer, leaning in to unhook the key for her. The moment felt almost suspended in time, so close that she could hear his heartbeat. She blushed, nervous yet oddly comforted, and quickly walked away. Wuxian, on the other hand, stood there smiling to himself. But someone else had seen it all, Bei. Watching them grow closer made her blood boil. She whispered to herself that she would find a way to turn everyone against Meow, no matter what it took. The next day brought a parent-teacher meeting at school. Meow had planned to bring her mother to sit beside her, but the bully girls, pretending to help, intentionally seated her mother at Bei's desk instead. Heartbroken, Meow stood there silently, while one of the girls smirked and said that her mother had done it deliberately on her request. Bei sat there gleefully, satisfied that Meow's side would remain empty. But moments later, Wuxian entered the room, calm and confident. He walked up to Meow's desk and sat down, telling the teacher that he was her family member and would attend on her behalf. The entire class turned to look, whispering in surprise, while Meow couldn't stop smiling, grateful once again for how he always seemed to protect her. That evening, Meow, Wuxian, Daniel, and a friend had dinner together. One of Wuxian's friends teased him, saying that it finally made sense why he always looked out for Meow. She cooked such delicious meals that anyone would want to protect her. Even Daniel laughed at the joke, until his phone rang. It was Bei, sobbing on the other end. She said that Meow had called her after school and asked to meet at the amusement park gate, but Meow never showed up. She cried that she had been waiting there for hours, scared and alone, and couldn't understand why her sister would do something so cruel. Daniel's patience finally snapped that evening. His voice, usually calm, was filled with anger as he turned to Meow and asked how she could do something so cruel to Bei. He accused her of taking revenge and told her that if anything happened to Bei, he would never forgive her. Without waiting for an explanation, he stormed off. Meow stood frozen, her heart sinking. She whispered that she hadn't done anything wrong. But when she arrived at the amusement park later, she hid behind a railing and overheard Bei crying to Daniel, twisting the truth completely. Bei claimed that Meow had bullied her, that she no longer felt safe, and that ever since the real daughter returned, nobody loved her anymore. Through fake tears, she asked if Daniel still loved her, or if all his affection now belonged to Meow. Daniel sighed deeply and told her that there was only one sister in his heart, and that was Bei. He said that even though Meow had come back, she wasn't really part of the family anymore because she was living somewhere else, not under their roof. He assured Bei that the family cared only for her, the one who had always been with them, not for someone who had disappeared for years and suddenly returned. Hearing those words shattered Meow. She couldn't hold back her tears, and Wuxian, standing quietly beside her, gently covered her ears with his hands so she wouldn't have to hear more. She muttered softly that she had never called Bei to the amusement park, that she had done nothing wrong. Wuxian told her that he believed her completely and that she didn't need to explain herself anymore. They returned home together, but Meow's heart was heavy. She began packing her bags and said she would return to the parents who had adopted her, the ones who had truly loved her. She reminded Wuxian that even if they weren't her biological family, they had treated her with kindness and warmth. But before she could leave, Wuxian stopped her, saying firmly that she wasn't going anywhere. That house wasn't just his anymore, it was theirs. He promised her that even if no one else cared, he always would. He told her that she could trust him to protect her and look after her, no matter what happened. Meow looked up at him through teary eyes, her heart softening at his words. For the first time in days, she smiled faintly and thanked him. The scene shifted to a small house in the countryside, the home of Meow's adoptive parents. Her mother's face lit up the moment she saw her daughter at the door, but her father looked worried. He asked why she had come alone and if everything in Beijing was all right. Before Meow could answer, Wuxian smoothly stepped in, explaining that she had come with her parents' permission and that he was just her brother's friend accompanying her. Relieved, her father smiled and welcomed them warmly. Meow excitedly showed Wuxian her childhood room, asking if he liked it. Her little brother barged in and, spotting Wuxian, teased her that he must be her boyfriend. Flustered, Meow quickly denied it, scolding her brother as he ran away, giggling. Later, during dinner, Wuxian mentioned casually that Meow was a great cook and made delicious meals every day. Her mother looked surprised, asking if she had been doing house chores instead of studying. Meow quickly covered it up, saying she only cooked occasionally for fun. Her mother smiled, but then grew serious, asking if she was truly happy in Beijing. Meow forced a smile and nodded, saying she was very happy that her biological parents treated her well and cared for her deeply. Her father reminded her that her dream had always been to become a doctor, something they couldn't afford. But now, since her real parents were wealthy, she should stay there and fulfill that dream. As she listened, tears quietly rolled down Miao's cheeks. She couldn't bring herself to tell them the truth that she wasn't happy, that she missed them terribly. But she knew she had to return to Beijing if she wanted to finish her education. Her parents became emotional too, wishing for her strength. Even Wuxian, watching from the side, felt a deep ache for her. Back in Beijing, the situation finally began to heal. Daniel had learned the truth that it was Bei who had lied about Miao. Regretful, he asked Bei to apologize. She did, and Miao, with her usual gentleness, forgave her immediately. Bei broke down, realizing that Miao had never been her enemy, and that perhaps they could be real sisters after all. Days later, the family sat around the dining table together, laughing and eating as if nothing had ever gone wrong. For the first time in a long while, the house felt warm again, like a true family. Time moved forward, and it was now 2012. Miao was still living at Wuxian's house. On her birthday, Wuxian gifted her a pendant engraved with their house number, a symbol of their shared home. She loved it instantly. One afternoon, a group of friends gathered to talk about life after graduation. Everyone had different dreams, but Wuxian said simply that his dream was to stay with Miao forever. He added that whatever she chose to become, he would follow the same path. Miao blushed while their friends smiled, knowing exactly what that meant. Not long after, while sitting together in a movie theater, Wuxian gently held her hand. The next day, they went to the beach, laughing and chasing waves like children. As the sun began to set, Wuxian finally confessed his feelings. He told her that when she graduated, he wanted to give her the gift of pink snow because he remembered how much she loved it. She laughed softly and said it wasn't possible, but he looked into her eyes and said he would do anything for her because she had become his entire world. The moment grew still, filled with nervousness, warmth, and quiet affection until they leaned closer and kissed. It was the beginning of something real. They were finally a couple, and for a while, everything felt perfect. But perfection rarely lasts. One evening, as they were joking and laughing at home, Wuxian's phone rang. His expression changed instantly. Without saying much, he told someone on the line to book him a flight and that he was coming immediately. Miao, confused, asked what had happened, but he only said there was a family emergency and that she should stay home and wait for him to return soon. Days passed, then weeks. Wuxian never came back. His number stopped working, and no one knew where he was. Daniel tried calling his friends, but every contact led to a dead end. Miao grew weaker by the day, falling ill from worry and heartbreak. Finally, unable to bear the silence any longer, she made up her mind. She would go abroad herself to find him because deep down, she knew something terrible must have happened. Otherwise, the man who promised never to leave her would never have disappeared like this. Daniel refused to let Miao leave. He held her arm and begged her to stay, insisting that running away would only make things worse. Days passed in tense silence until one evening, as Miao sat by her phone, hoping for a miracle, it finally rang. The caller ID flashed a name she hadn't seen in years, Wuxian. Her hands trembled as she answered, overwhelmed by relief and confusion. She bombarded him with questions where he had been. Was he all right? When would he come home? But his voice was distant, hollow. He said softly that he was sorry, that he could never return to China, and that their relationship had to end. He told her not to wait for him anymore. Then the line went dead. Miao froze, the words echoing in her ears like thunder. Her heart refused to believe it. She kept asking herself if he had ever really loved her, or if everything had been a lie. Later that night, she walked to the beach with Wuxian's photograph clutched to her chest. The sea breeze tangled her hair as she looked at his picture, her eyes filled with tears. She whispered his name to the waves, as though the wind might carry her voice to wherever he was. Time drifted by, seasons changed, and life pushed her forward. She enrolled in medical college, fulfilling the dream her parents once had for her. But while her classmates laughed, partied, and lived carefree lives, Miao sat quietly in the corner, her mind trapped in memories of Wuxian. Every corridor, every quiet moment reminded her of him. He was gone, but he lingered in her thoughts like an echo she couldn't silence. She had become a top student, and the day of her graduation finally arrived. A tiny part of her still believed in Wuxian's promise, the one where he had said he'd be there for this moment. She looked around, scanning the crowd, hoping to see his face. He didn't come. Disheartened, she sat outside alone. The sky was pale and cold, and suddenly, pink snow began to fall. Her heart leapt. Could it be him? Had Wuxian found a way to keep his promise after all? She ran upstairs, searching for him, only to discover a film crew nearby, shooting a commercial using pink snow for visual effect. That cruel coincidence shattered her one last hope. She stood still for a long time, then took off the locket Wuxian had given her and threw it away into the snow. "You broke your promise too," she whispered. "Maybe you were never really mine." Years passed again, and by 2021, Miao's voice had changed, steady, mature, and a little colder. She told us that there was a time when forgetting Wuxian seemed impossible, but she had finally let go. She was now a successful surgeon, living her dream. She even smiled as she introduced the woman sitting beside her, her soon-to-be sister-in-law. That evening, the family gathered to discuss wedding plans. Everyone laughed, the air filled with happiness until the door opened, and the past walked in. Wuxian. He sat among them like nothing had happened, like the years between them were just a pause in conversation. Miao's body stiffened, the air in the room seemed to vanish. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor, and left before anyone could stop her. Only Daniel and his friends stayed silent, exchanging uneasy glances. They already knew Wuxian was back, they just hadn't told her. A few days later, Wuxian appeared at the hospital where Miao worked, hoping to speak with her. But fate had other plans. Instead of Miao, he ran into her boyfriend. Seeing them together, Wuxian's heart sank, and he quietly turned away. The next day, Miao found out that Wuxian had bought the apartment right next to hers. Her boyfriend confronted him, demanding to know who he was. Wuxian said nothing. Miao stepped in coldly and explained that he was just an old schoolmate, someone she didn't even want to see again. She took her boyfriend's hand and walked away, leaving Wuxian standing there, motionless. That night, Miao drank alone. The alcohol burned her throat, but not enough to erase the storm inside her. When Wuxian showed up, she looked at him with fury and heartbreak. He pleaded for one chance, asking her to come with him to their old house so he could explain everything. She shouted at him to stop. Her voice cracked, filled with pain. She told him that she had finally moved on, that she didn't need him to reopen the wounds she had spent years healing. She asked why he couldn't let her be happy, and with trembling words, she said he had died in her heart long ago. Then she left, slamming the door behind her. Wuxian stood there in silence, devastated. Outside, Miao broke down, crying under the streetlights. Her boyfriend found her and gently took her hand. He already knew who Wuxian was and how long she had waited for him. He told her that if she still loved Wuxian, she should hear him out, that her happiness mattered more than anything to him. But if her heart belonged to the present, not the past, she needed to let Wuxian go once and for all. Miao thought for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Then she apologized to her boyfriend, realizing she couldn't pretend anymore. The relationship ended quietly, leaving both hearts bruised, but honest. The next day, chaos erupted in the apartment complex. A neighbor came knocking, complaining that water was leaking from Wuxian's flat. Miao went to check, using the spare key hidden above the door. When she stepped inside, she froze. The walls were covered with photographs of her. Every smile, every glance, every memory they'd shared. In the middle of the room sat the locket she had thrown away years ago. Her breath caught. How could it be here? Shaken, she ran to her brother, demanding to know the truth. She accused him of hiding things, of working with Wuxian behind her back. Daniel tried to stay calm, but she kept pressing, her voice rising, her eyes full of anger and pain. Finally, he sighed and said she deserved to know everything. He began recounting what had happened after Wuxian left for his mother. Wuxian's mother had once been a graceful dancer, a woman who had given up her career for the man she loved. But her husband betrayed her, fell in love with someone else, and disappeared. Years later, divorce papers arrived in the mail. The shock broke her completely. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping, living only to wait for a man who would never return. When Wuxian came home, she begged him to call his father to tell him to come back. He tried, but as he reached for the phone, his mother, standing just a few feet away, whispered her husband's name one last time and jumped out of the balcony right in front of her son. Wuxian stood frozen as his mother's body fell from the top of the building. The sound of her final scream echoed in his head long after it ended. The shock broke something inside him so deeply that he lost his sense of reality. Within hours, he was admitted to a mental hospital. Every time he looked out of the window, he saw her, the image of her fall replaying endlessly in his mind. His condition worsened until doctors diagnosed him with post-traumatic stress disorder. He became fragile, barely speaking, barely eating. During those years, his cousin stayed with him, taking care of him and updating Daniel about his condition. When Daniel told Wuxian that Miao was still waiting for him, Wuxian decided to call her that night. It was the same call where he had told her he would never return to China. He hadn't lied, as he truly believed there was no recovery for him. He didn't want Miao to waste her youth waiting for a broken man, the way his mother had waited for his father until it destroyed her. When the truth finally came out, the scene shifted to the present. Miao sat in silence, tears sliding down her cheeks. Wuxian entered quietly and asked if Daniel had told her everything. She nodded and, choking on emotion, demanded to know why he had hidden the truth. Wuxian said he couldn't bear to ruin her life. He told her she had achieved so much to become a successful doctor, so she deserved someone strong, not a man carrying the shadow of his mother's death. But Miao shook her head. Her voice trembled but was certain. She said she didn't want anyone else. If she couldn't be with him, she'd rather be alone. Wuxian couldn't speak. He stepped forward and held her tightly. Both broke down, confessing that no matter how much time had passed, they still couldn't live without each other. Then the past came rushing back through flashbacks, Wuxian admitting that he had secretly ordered her birthday cakes every year, watched her graduation from afar, and even created the pink snow that day just to keep his promise. When she had thrown away his locket in anger, he had picked it up and kept it safe. He said he had always known how much she was hurting, but he hadn't been brave enough to face her. The scene cut to the family's living room. Laughter filled the house again. Even Bei was there, smiling as she announced she'd found a boyfriend and would introduce him soon. The mood was light and warm until Wuxian went to the kitchen to bring out a dish. Moments later, a loud crash echoed. Wuxian had collapsed on the floor. Everyone rushed to him in panic. The hospital tests revealed the truth that Wuxian had late-stage cancer. He had come back from abroad knowing he was dying, determined to spend his remaining days with Miao. That was why he had stayed away all these years, because he didn't want her to see him like that. He had hoped to return only once he was cured, but fate hadn't given him that chance. Now, his only wish was to live out his final moments with her. Miao was shattered. She went to him, tears streaming down her face, and hugged him tightly. He smiled weakly and told her not to cry, but she couldn't stop. She held on to him as if refusing to let death take him away. Wuxian whispered, "Let's go home." The next morning, Miao woke up and found his side of the bed empty. She searched the house and finally found him in the darkroom, printing her photographs, hundreds of them. He turned and smiled, saying he just wanted to fill his last days with her face. They spent the afternoon together, laughing softly between tears. She leaned in and kissed him, cherishing what time they had left. Later, when Daniel's fiancée was trying on wedding dresses, Miao slipped into a gown herself. Standing before the mirror, she imagined what her own wedding would look like and cried silently, knowing that dream was slipping away. That night, Wuxian gathered his closest friends. His voice was faint but steady. He told them he knew his time was short and gave them 3 final wishes. First, he was transferring all his money and property to Miao's name, including investments in Daniel's business, so she would never face financial trouble. Second, he asked them to celebrate Miao's birthday every year, so she would never feel alone. And third, he begged them never to mention his name in front of her again once he was gone, to help her forget him and move on with her life. His friends broke down, unable to hold back tears. They didn't want to lose him, but they knew there was nothing left to do. Moments later, Miao called out his name. He wiped his tears, stepped outside with the others, and together they watched the fireworks light up the night sky. For a while, everyone smiled, pretending the world wasn't falling apart. The day has finally arrived with the wedding bells of Daniel. Everyone was dressed up, ready to attend Daniel's ceremony until the bride stepped out. It wasn't Daniel's fiancée, it was Miao, wearing a white gown, walking slowly toward Wuxian. Everyone fell silent. Wuxian stared at her in disbelief. Miao smiled through her tears and said that no matter how little time they had left, she wanted to be his wife. Overwhelmed, Wuxian thanked her for every memory, every moment she had given him. They held hands, remembering their first meeting, their laughter, their promises, their years apart. He whispered that she had made his life worth living. She kissed him gently, and everyone around them clapped, crying and smiling at once. And the drama ended at this note. Because sometimes you don't need to know what will happen in the future, but you have to live the best moments you have.